And now, without any further delay, I would like to turn today's meeting over to our presenter, Clementino D. Mendoza. Clementino, you now have the floor. Clementino, I'm not able to hear you. Clementino, if you have a headset on, why don't you try using the speakers on your PC if you have them? That might work. Clementino, I just heard, I believe you, and your presentation is up now. Can you hear me all right, William and Clementino?
Yes.
Oh, I can hear you now. Wonderful.
Yes. I can hear you. This is William.
Okay.
I think Clementino has no audio.
Okay. Do you have an alternative audio you could use, Clementino? I've got you unmuted, so I'm thinking it has something to do with your setup. I'm wondering if you could use your PC speakers. Or microphone, I should say. Yeah, I was speaking to Clementino right before the meeting, so it looks like he's going to sign out and sign back in. So please just hold the line for a minute, and we'll be right with you.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Thank you.
Okay. I don't know what was going on, but we're
welcome.
finally back.
Yeah. Feel
Okay.
free to start anytime. I can see your presentation. It looks great.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Okay, guys. My apologies for this sudden delay. So with that, let's get started. My name is Clementino Mendonca. I'm a national ALM architect at Neudesic. Let me talk a little bit about my previous experience in working with Visual Studio and ALM and, of course, TFS. I've been, involved with ALM since TFS 2005. And in fact, at the time when I worked at Microsoft, I jumped to the ALM team at Microsoft Services and stayed there for 4 years. During that time, I also joined the Microsoft's national ALM team, and in that capacity, I worked for about a year with the Visual Studio team in the Visual Studio 2010 as an MSF planner. So, some of the things you see in the process templates from that time, I had some contribution to give on that. I've also been a Microsoft Visual Studio ALM Ranger since 2006, and the professional Scrum trainer with Scrum.org since 2010. So therefore, I pretty much have been covering the full range of ALM activities, if you will. And in fact, this is a good segue for us to get started in talking about some of the issues that we have as developers in small teams. Mainly, developers in small teams, they have to go over the whole spectrum, right, of capabilities. We have to develop, we have to talk to the customer, we have to structure our requirements in a good way. And while going through this whole cycle, as you can see here, we have to pretty much fulfill all the capabilities of all teams that comprise a software development team. So therefore, when we are a single developer, or basically 3, 4, 5 people, we have to take care of all those activities, and the amount of information that we usually get is overwhelming, right? Normally, I would have to manage contracts, and I would have to, especially if I'm working as a contractor for a bigger company, there is the whole issue of managing communications between one company and the other. And as you can see here, all these disconnectedness or let's say that I'm inventing a new word here, but all this disconnectedness provides a lot of impediment, if you will, for us to develop a good solution that matches our customer capabilities. If you look, for instance, here in the implementation phase of the overall improvement life cycle that we go as agile developers, we will have capabilities that we can't have if we don't have a way to track and match our knowledge in a centralized location. Normally, we would have to also counter with the fact that the entry barrier, if you will, for developers working with current technologies is very steep. That is, normally the tools, they're inexpensive if they're disconnected. For instance, you can use open source tools and have all something to track the backlog items, and something here to track the builds, and something there to track the code. But when it comes to working with all this disconnectedness, there is an extra overhead, and that appears later in the cycle as learnings that are not captured, issues in production that we have to then resolve, and then again we have all that disconnectedness again, feeding back into the backlog. Now, in order to resolve those disconnectedness issues, Microsoft has started helping us by providing a new version of Team Foundation Server, that is the Team Foundation Server Express 2012. So before, what you could do with all those problems that we have for value delivery impediments for small teams is that you could either get TFS, which is a workhorse that will help you scale up your teams up to thousands of people. Like for instance today, with the Visual Studio team, you have 1,500 people. working to deliver a project. Well, with TFS Express, what we have is the same capabilities that we would have for bigger companies, but scaled to a level that they're actually useful to a small team. Microsoft then is lowering the barriers of entry for software developers across the world in two ways: by providing this Team Foundation Server Express free version up to 5 people, and at the same time providing the client side, the Express versions of Visual Studio. What is the rationale behind this? Is that it's of course good business for Microsoft, who can always scale up as your team grows up, as your company grows up, and at the same time it takes all of the impediments for you to do a good job with the customer from the very beginning. And on that, what I mean to say is that tools, they're meant to be things that are out of the way and not in the way in terms of preventing you from doing your work, right? I've heard a lot of people say, well, why should I not use some of the open source tools to do development on the Microsoft platform? Well, you could say that a few years ago that might be justified, because just the fact that installing TFS was such an enterprise. But for instance, today, as you will see here, I have installed on my computer, I have a version of Team Foundation Server Basic, which is similar to Express, and this is a Windows 7 Visual Studio install, meaning that I have both the client and the TFS server on my local, so there is no excuse. I can pretty much do my source control capabilities and everything from my local desktop. The days where small teams and startup developers couldn't use or couldn't follow all the best practices for ALM, they're gone now that we now have this capability available. Okay, and with that, let's take again talk a little bit about what exactly Team Foundation Server Express entails, right? It's essentially something that, as designed for small teams, it's also compatible with VSS if you're just coming up from using VSS for the past few years. It will allow you to also use other clients such as Eclipse, so that you can do your Java development using TFS as a source control if you wish. And if you for some reason need to go beyond 5 people in your team, then adding a CAL is very simple and it's very inexpensive. You don't have to buy the full license and you can continue using the free versions. So basically, TFS Expression is what we used to call the TFS Basic Wizard, which still is there, but the install is trimmed down so that you just don't have to click any buttons, don't have to make any choices. It's going to install just the TFS Basic with all its capabilities, and also some of the limitations, as I mentioned here. There is no SharePoint integration and no SQL Server reporting, which is different from the built-in reporting, and we'll see that. It's not that TFS Basic or Express doesn't have any reporting at all. On the contrary, it's got a lot of information on this, as you will see, but it doesn't have those reports that are done using SQL Server. And frankly, those are really not that necessary for small teams. One of the things that we have in terms of the small teams is that as we start to work within the Agile framework, right, meaning thinking in an Agile fashion, normally we tend to ignore that for small teams, the Agile Manifesto, principles, which is individuals and interactions over processes and tools, they become even more important. That is, let's say that you have to find out for 5 people what their current status is. do you really need to go to TFS and look at their status updates and so on? You might as well just talk to each one of those and you'll be done, right? Bottom line is that for smaller teams, individual interactions become even more important than looking at a tool to find out what the current status is. And Microsoft, in correspondence to that principle, has therefore taken out the reporting capability for using the SQL Server side, which only was a little bit on the way. Let's say too much information, if you will. Also, for the Foundation Server Express 2012, you can only install on a single server, meaning that if you, for some reason, scale your team up to, let's say, 30 people, and you need to do a dual server install, you would have to, pretty much back up your database and do the installation. But there is an upgrade path, which is similar to doing a single server upgrade path. Team Foundation Server scales up for everyone, right? We talked about this already. From the advanced side, you have, full SQL Server and standard enterprise integration. The basic and express versions you can install on a laptop and work in an airplane, for instance. You have simple source control management capability, which is, the same for Visual Studio TFS 2012 in terms of it allows you to do that complex integration, right? But for small teams, you don't have to worry about that much. So a simple branch plan, whereas in the advanced TFS level, you will be providing, branch plans with multiple isolation tiers. Bottom line is that there is an upgrade path, right? Also, in terms of portfolio view, Team Foundation Server, as you get more and more projects on your TFS, you will go to what we call the portfolio view, and there is an integration, for instance, with Project Server, which exists only on the advanced server version, right? And finally, in terms of team sizes, as you can see here, we can go from 5 people in the team to about 1,000 people in the team. Now, with that said, let me share my desktop so we can take a look at some of the capabilities that we have for Visual Studio. So, as you can see here, I have here the Express for 2012 for web, right? And I'm going to, as a sample, and by the way, I also have the Ultimate version here, as you can see. And the reason I wanted to do that is to show you that I can even run those two versions side by side. So if you take a look at the what we have for the documentation of Express, notice that I have in here in the Microsoft website, I have essentially the versions that are available as a paid service, if you will: Ultimate, Premium, Professional, and Test, Team Foundation Server. And then down here we have 2012. So if you want to download this, if this is the first time you're seeing this, you can download it by going to this particular URL, which is Microsoft.com Visual Studio ENG downloads. Now, Visual Studio Express will work with Team Foundation Server Express. Any of those clients here will work with Visual Studio. The web, Windows 8, Windows Desktop, phone, and those are free. Again, I'm not going to cease to express this, which is Microsoft to me is changing the paradigm for software development within the Microsoft platform. right now we're talking about the client tools to connect, right? But I'm going to show you here in just a bit, not only that, that you also have what we call Team Foundation Server Service, which is a online service to connect to Visual Studio and to Team Foundation Server and have Team Foundation Server services. One of the things that I wanted to show you here is also an example of, I'll come back to the online documentation later, is an example on how to connect to a Team Foundation server, right? And for that, I'm going to show you here that from Visual Studio, from Express 2012 for web, I'm going to connect to an existing server. I've already registered a few servers to use this. As you can see here, I have my Rangers TFS Preview project. I have a local TFS server. That would be the TFS Basic. I have my company TFS server. And of course, I have the TFS for Small Teams project, which is the one I'm going to be using here. As I connect, it's going to ask me to provide my credentials. And here we are. So my credentials were already cached, but essentially it's a Windows Live login. So now what you see here on the left side is the default collection with my it's a collection would be kind of a partition that was provided to me, free of charge by Microsoft in this visualstudio.com service. And this is a part of what we're going to be doing, but right now I don't want to focus too much on the services on the service side. For our purposes here, what matters is that we are connecting to Team Foundation Server, and that connection is being done to either a local or a remote service. It doesn't matter for our purposes in the next steps that we're going to be going here. By the way, I wonder if you guys can see my whole screen here, or is it cutting out? Just let me know if it's cutting out. I will change the resolution. But right now, I think that should be okay for most of you.
Looks good to me, Clementino. I see a window, but it's almost full screen. Looks great.
Okay. Well, anyway, so bottom is that, as you can see here, I'm now connected to this team project, right? And out of the options that I had before, notice that I had 4 options, and it means I'm connecting using the Express Web. Of course, I had already connected to this project before using Ultimate, but I wanted to let you guys see how it looks like when connecting through this other UI. So by through Express Web, I can now go here and look at my the source control that I have for this project. Right now, I don't have anything, and but I do have some work items. As you can see here, some requirements are there, and I do have the web access version. And notice that this is transparent. The web access version is going to the service, to the online service, but it might as well be going to the local service. And for that matter, then I'll show you by switching to my local TFS server. Right, I'm connecting to this one. What I want to show you here is that the screen is, or the web piece is pretty much the same. So for instance, if I now go to my web access, to my local, this is what you see, right? But there are a few differences, and we'll be talking about those in just a bit. Notice that this one has also, build but without an asterisk, like it was showing on the web version. Okay, now with the Express version, you can do development, of course, on a targeted technology, if you will, right? In this case, it will be web, and therefore, let's essentially just create a new project on my web version, and on my web project, and as I create a new project, in fact, I wanted to do something different. I want to go back to using the web version. Yes, and that is going to be important in just a bit. But in the meantime, let me just do this. I'm now connected online, and if I go and create a new project, say I just create a new ASP.NET Web Forms application, and notice that I'm going to add to source control in just a bit. Now, as you can see, because it's this is a web connection to the web, of course, your question would be, well, but I have some capabilities in using offline source control that I don't have with TFS. The answer is now you do. You have something called local workspaces, which allow you to work disconnected in a disconnected fashion, and it'll synchronize as you connect again transparently, right? And you can also do several operations on source control in a disconnected fashion, like checkout, and it will understand that and make the work be synchronized later as you come back. So notice that right now I don't have anything on my source control, and I'm going to the web, as you can see here. There is a URL here, and I'm going to the web, but I'm connected using the local Express 2012 client. Now let me go to my Explorer here, and if I right-click the solution, I say Add Solution to Source Control. I'm just going to make a new folder and call it main. And then check it in. As you can see here, I have a small little plus in my main. And I don't have it mapped locally. And if you look here, you can see that I have the check-in and pending changes, and I would say just a created main. Solution to source control, and now I do check-in, and I say yes. I want to check in those 305 items. know what it's doing, but it's adding all my entity framework over there as well. Well, let me cancel this. Don't know exactly what it's doing. I just wanted to... Oh, it's because it's adding the packages, of course. Yes. Let's see how big this is. I don't want to wait here for the next... Yeah. Well, let me do this. I'm just going to add this one here. Oh, I know why. It's because when I created the application, I pretty much I'm gonna do those pending changes. I'm gonna recreate the application for a simple reason. It's because I forgot to take off the when you do a check-in, you can filter all the binaries. And right now, I don't want to add any binaries there. Well, it might be interesting for them to go there in some situations, but right now that's not what we want to do. So you know what? Let me just close this. No harm done. Let's just get started again. Notice, by the way, that this was transparent. I'm connected to the web, and I don't have to worry about managing my own TFS server or anything like that, right? So again, I'm going to do a right-click, and this time I'm going to be more careful when the solution source control. So again, make new folder, main, and this time I'm going to say advanced, right? Okay. So I have this. Mappings are right. You guys can see here. And the mappings, they refer to local mappings as well. What I don't see, though, is the filtering capability for binaries. So it looks like that particular project doesn't have that capability. I'll look it up for you guys on that. But essentially now we have the application source control again. So pretty much that didn't help me much. But at least I did add the packages, though. That's bad, practice. And let me see here if I can check in the pending changes. They're only relevant to what we want to demo here. Okay, I need all that. Okay, so these are the excluded changes, and that's what I wanted to find out. So I do have a filter here, right? As you can see, I'm filtering, well, I'm not filtering. I am adding all the DLLs. Let me custom the filter because I want to make this fast. Oh, but the problem is that if I do this now, it's gonna delay me even more. So let me just view the list again. By the way, guys, the reason why these are being added is because if I want to add builds on the server, I will need all this information to be able to do builds, right? So let's get started, and the sooner it's done, the better. While that, I'm going to go back to the other window that I had here to show you guys a few things. So first, this is the small teams project that we're just looking at. And one of the things that I talked about TFS, the TFS Express, is that it doesn't have the SQL Server reports. And as you can see here, but it does have reports, right? For instance, the burn down report is right here. And it does have a few things which are very relevant to small teams. For instance, one of the issues that I've seen in most, people working with small teams is that they have to manage the communications with the customer. And as you can see here, I do have on my service the capability of adding different accounts from different email systems. In this case here, I'm using, Hotmail. Of course, it's got to be federated, but if your customer can get a Hotmail account or a Live ID account, and then you combine it with your own domain, and then you're able to do communications through TFS, which normally has been a pain for small teams because they have to, set up a server, and then they have to, to manage proxies and firewalls, and then they have to manage the infrastructure. Right now, Microsoft has taken all that complexity out of your shoulders. You can just go for a free service and then do this. As we are doing the check-in, and since we're going through the TFS demo, I want to show you here what does the screen for managing the local TFS looks like. Now I'm opening the TFS Administration Console. Now remember that this is for TFS Basic / TFS Express, right? So if you have to install a small version of TFS for your internal consumption, if you don't want to use the Microsoft external repository, this is what you would get. Also have the capability of, managing a few things, like for instance, notice that this version here has one collection, and also you have the capabilities of adding builds, right? And for that, for instance, I left so that you guys could see how it is that you configure the build service. And by the way, this is for the basic version. Now, looks like I might have an issue here. Nope, looks like it's fine. Build services, I'm going to add one agent and just use the default account. Next, I'm going to ask it to do a review of the those settings and then get them applied. So this Theme Foundation Server Administration Console is something that you get after you install TFS Basic / Express in your computer. Okay, right now I have an issue here, and it is that so this computer is a member of the Active Directory domain, but the domain controllers are not accessible. And why is that? It's because when I installed TFS local, I was connected to the Neudesic domain, and therefore it expects me to be connected to the domain right now to make changes. It's because if I go back to my TFS configuration, right, you will see it has my account here as my Neudesic account here as the account that that I'm connected as the administrator. So therefore, in order to validate that I can do any operations, using that account, I would have to be connected. So, but it doesn't matter. Bottom line is that we're going to be doing the same here in just a bit, but we're going to add a build on the server side. So pretty much we talked about then the TFS client side, right? The TFS Express. We talked about Web Express, and let's see now if on the server side, if I already have my. Oh yes, I do. So as you can see here, I'm on the web, and let me hide this. So as you can see here, I'm on the web, and I'm looking at the source control that's in the web. So if I go to main, for instance, and take a look at the app, right, everything is right there. And in fact, if I click here, I can, take a look at the code on the web while doing that. Of course, in order for you to, edit it, you have to use a client. But this in itself is already, just the fact that you can have your team take a look at what's going on and also at the history, right, of what was done so far, and you're on the web and this is being managed for you. This is a major plus. And as I said, this view here, and I will analyze that by going back to the client. Oh, sorry, wrong client. This is the ultimate one. So I'm just opening Express again, just one moment. Yes, for Express Web, you can see my menu here. It's on the other screen. So I'm back here, and I'm going to go back there. And again, I'm connecting to the web. So I'm connected to the web. What I want to emphasize is this, that if I go to the WebEx view, right, be it local, be it on the TFS service, it looks exactly the same. And that's the beauty of it. You don't have to worry about UIs and so on. And we'll come back to how we use this web UI capability in just a minute. Now let me go back to the deck. I don't have many slides on the deck, but I do have a couple of things I want to talk about right now. We're sort of back a few slides here, so let me see. Talked about the differences and how TFS scales up and down. Oh yeah, we're going to talk about a little bit about the build integration or build automation piece. Now, as small teams go, the best way to provide feedback to the customer is to provide a working version. And at that, by the way, I will show you in just a bit the Agile principles just to refresh your memory for those who are doing Agile software development, right? In that we should, as a matter of principle and best practice, we should try to provide working software as a way to provide a status update. So therefore, build automation, right? Integrating all the time and finding, making sure that the software is working is a must. If you use something like Visual Studio and TFS, you have several benefits of using the built-in build system. For instance, each build can be done so that you can compare. Therefore, if you're using the full version, of course, you can compare tests that are working on a previous one to those that are that might be failing, and then you can compare the two versions. If they were failing in the previous one, and now you compare with the current one, you can say, hey, those were failing in my previous build. Can you verify if they still are? And if so, then you can make sure that your application is always being fixed, right? So bottom line is, the same capabilities you have with build automation with for the big Kahuna, the big TFS, using Ultimate and the full thing, you can get with the free version as well. Again, it's taking the barriers of entry for software development and completely making it easy for you to start as a software developer, just experiment and play with the tools all the time. So let's take a look again. We just went through the TFS Basic Express demo, but as I go back, the next step, I'm gonna also show the build part. So this is the comparison graph, if you will, from Express, Server, and the service. Notice that TFS Server has this Agile Product and Project Management, which is a few things more related to the Agile capability, but you can manage an Agile project with Express very well. And in fact, I'll show you the work items and dashboards in just a bit. Express allows you to manage test cases, but it doesn't allow you to add the steps and so on unless you have all the capabilities. Now notice that I'm talking about TFS versions and not the client version, which means that the TFS Express version allows you to, if you have Ultimate or if you have the testing tools, Microsoft Test Manager and so on with other versions, you will be able to manage test cases. But that doesn't come with the free version, right? So there's a free version of the client tools, meaning that if you're using the Express, Web Express and so on, you will have to get an extra license for Microsoft Test Manager to be able to manage test cases. But it's still easy, right? You can have one person with that kind of a license and everybody else using the free versions. Still a lot cheaper than would be in most cases elsewhere. Notice that you can also do heterogeneous development with all the three versions. You can use the Java capability or the connectivity capabilities, for instance, by using the Eclipse, the TFS Explorer Eclipse client with all the three versions. The setup for Express, of course, is very simple and nimble, and so you have to do some setup. You don't have to do any setup for the service capability, of course. And I think that this is somewhat inverted. I'll have to check, but right now I got this slide from a different presentation. Now I just realized that installation setup is minus for the server side, and plus for service. Oh, I think that the way you interpret this is that the installation setup is done for you, meaning that you don't have to worry about installation setup in the Express. You don't have to worry about the options and so on. That's done for you. And in fact, when I did install it on my computer, my Windows 7 computer, I didn't have to choose any options. Basically, I just clicked the button install, and then it did it, and then it showed me the screen. Now, for the server, of course, you'll have to think about collections and managing different teams and process templates and different parts of the tier. And you have the advanced and the basic and single server installs. So, bottom line is that you'll have to do some planning, and therefore it's not immediate. And of course, for the service, you don't have to do an install at all. That's the beauty of it. Service, of course, the data is outside of the network, is on the Microsoft servers, and SharePoint integration. Notice that Express doesn't have that, neither does the service. So for that matter, then if you do need SharePoint integration, then you'll have to use server, and even if you install the server on its basic function, it won't have SharePoint, therefore. And here is what you might be confused about when we say that there are no reports, is that we're talking about the reports based on the data warehouse, meaning that the warehouse in that matter is that it's the warehouse would be where the aggregated data of all the actions and things that you did in the project are kept, and they're very useful, and it's very handy if you're managing 500 people. Because you can gather trends and tendencies, and it's like managing. It could be a lot of people use the expression managing a herd of cats, but I would say that it's probably like managing a train wreck if you don't have the data, right? Imagine managing 500 people without having some sort of a trending tool, and that's what the data warehouse and reporting capability give to you, right? But as I said, on the other hand, if you're doing small projects with 5 people, the interaction between those 5 people is more important than the accumulated data. In fact, you don't have enough data to provide the data points for the reports, right? That's why it doesn't make sense for you to try to force everyone to use the tool and then use those data warehouse reports, because they are not necessarily as trustworthy, because you don't have enough data, right? It's a basic principle of measurement. You got to have enough data points to be able to get that trending capability. But you can still manage the reports within Visual Studio, and I'll show you this right now. So the first thing to manage an Agile project, right? And remember that we were saying that you can't do Agile project management in Express. Not true. Is that we're talking about TFS versions here, right? Is that what we mean by that is that we won't have some of the features, but we do have some of them. So as you can see here, this is a screenshot of full TFS version, and we're looking at what we call the task or the sprint dashboard, right? And I have swim lanes here, and I have on the left side I have a column with the requirements, and then in blue I have the tasks that I have to achieve in order to fulfill those requirements or user stories. And then those tasks, they are in several states. So for instance, there are a few of them that are in the to-do list. Other tasks are actually in progress already. And finally, you have tasks on the right side which are already done. And when everything is done, then the product owner or the customer can come in and say, hey, everything is done. Let's see if this software works. Then we can mark the task or the work item, the requirement, the user story is done. Right. Now, this is the full version also capabilities of what you have in terms of report. See that there's not that much a difference with what I have normally in my basic and express versions. So now let's go back and take a look at the express version. But looking from the management perspective, right? What do we get? Now I'm connecting to my main monitor, and you can see here I have the manifesto for Agile software development as a remember, right? So basically, this is what we're talking about Agile. So the working software piece, you do it by enabling builds. The individual interactions, you do it by managing the project using those reports I'm going to show you right now, or those views that I'm going to show you right now. And of course, you have all the capabilities for doing software development by responding to change means planning, to use iterations to structure your releases. And finally, when you say customer collaboration, is that we would like to have our customer to also take a look at this. And by the way, that's why the importance of the being able to, in a way, being able to add people which are not part of the team, or not part of your domain as part of what you need to do. So we have already done this. Let's go back to home here. And as you might remember, this is the application I just added, source control. So if I go home and I take a look at the web access version, right? Well, first of all, I already have a graph here, right? This is my burn down. And if I take a look at my backlog, notice that my backlog has the list of user stories, and each user story has a few things that you can use, right? So in this case here, I have I added for a demo before actors and a description. You can use whatever name you want for, but what I did is that I added an example of an actor, which is a way to do use cases. So it doesn't matter. Notice that in Scrum, and this is the process template that we are using. A process template is a definition on how the UI will look for Team Foundation Server. So if you are using, for instance, the Scrum process template, it'll make Team Foundation Server use the nomenclature for Scrum. You have product backlogs, you have sprints. If you're using, for instance, the MSF Agile, it's going to use iterations, it's going to use user stories, and so on. So for this product backlog item, for instance, I decided to not only I added a description which was actually more in tune with using use case. It's up to me. Notice that a work item in this case here, it really looks like a user story, and you can attach a storyboard. You can, which is set of PowerPoint screen mock-ups that drive some of the requirements. I can also add test cases in here. Remember that in order to manage the details of them, I have to connect to Microsoft Test Manager. But that doesn't matter. I can create my list of test cases right now here. And also, but most important thing is that you can add acceptance criteria. And that's where the customer would add your acceptance criteria, so that you can have, for the customer, a way for them to verify what they had asked before in the beginning. So for instance, this story here, the system shall allow user to fund their account via remote deposit capture. So as a criteria for acceptance, it would be that me as a product owner, I would like, or better yet, let's make it this more assertive. I will know that this is done when I see a screen that allows me. Remember, this is the customer talking. They will go into whatever language they think is okay for them to create an acceptance criteria or a done criteria. So that when I see a screen that allows me to verify that funds have been deposited. So Now that I save it, still saving, it's saved on the back end. And that is forever. Okay, I'm back. And as you can see now, there is also history, right? Not only I created this, but also it shows that I modified a few fields. And now, as I added my acceptance criteria changed, it means that if I'm collaborating with the customer, following the Agile principles, the customer will then create the acceptance criteria. They will log in into my system, or in this case, the TFS service, where we share the project. They will log in. They will put their acceptance criteria in there. Then after we are done, and when the customer has to verify how the project is right now, right, I can pretty much go back here and take a look as I'm doing my acceptance board. I can say, hey, well, is this done? Not done yet. Well, you see, let's say that I move this to done. Right, just change then the task develop UI to done. And as I moved everything, and at the end I have to, change the status of this one and verify whether it's done or not, then I will be able to come back here. By the way, I'm simulating what would the customer do. I'm the customer. I'm looking at the sprint items that I was promised. So I have 3 items. They should correspond to working software. I click here in the first one, and I take a look. And let's say that everything was done. Then, okay, well, as a customer, I would go into my own acceptance criteria and verify what I, asked them at the time, and say, okay, well, now let's take a look at the software and how it's working. And then, if it's okay, then I will mark the status to done. Right? And that's how you would then solve one of the biggest headaches of small teams working with customers, especially if the customer is a big company, is that by being able to have the customer themselves to enter their criteria and look at what we're doing already, this allows us to concentrate on delivering value instead of managing communications, right? So, okay, so I have here, oh yeah, I haven't configured this, so let me show you here how this is done. And in fact, if I look into my sprint here, well, better yet, what I can do is I think it might be better. Well, let me do this, guys. I'll be able to create a build. So right now, let's just set the dates for this iteration and say that the start date was December. It's going to be a long iteration. And the end date is let's say, the 19th. Oh, I'm saying that I have no permissions. Oh, I see why. It's because I'm connected with one not the administrator account. I would have to remember, right, as I'm doing this, that I had 2 accounts in this Team Foundation server. I have Clementino de Mendonca, which is the one that I'm connected to, and the personal hotmail.com. And this is the one that I used as the manager for this. So I can use another backlog to show you how we set this, and I'll do that in just a minute. Before I move there, I promised that I was going to show you guys how to create a build, and that's what I'm going to do. So here we are back into the web application, right? And let's go home. And now in the build piece, now let's create a new build definition. What issue am I having here? Let me see with which account am I connected as. I'm connected to TFS for small teams, and let me see, I'm connected here. Let me go to my settings. Now, that's a good point. I'm using 2 accounts, and frankly, guys, I don't remember which one I'm using. So the best thing to do then is to disconnect. Oh, let me do this. I'm going to and in fact, this will also show you how this works by using a different client. So I'm now connecting to Team Foundation Server using my Ultimate version. And as I look into this, I'm going to connect to this TFS for small teams, now using the full version of TFS, which doesn't change that many things, right? I mean, basically the web, the TFS Express and Visual Studio Express are scaled down versions of the same code base for Visual Studio and TFS. So therefore, when I'm connecting using Ultimate, I'm just basically seeing things with issues that, or with features which are enabled here and there. And this one I know I'm connecting through the account that has permissions. So therefore, again, I'm connected to the same team project. Let me go there, go through web access. I think that with the other one I connected using, yeah, so Clementino Mendonca. Okay. And as I go through the other one. Well, those are the same accounts. So I'm not sure what the issue was here. But let's go back then to over here, and then we were about to change the task burn down chart. Sorry. Going to the board, and in the board select the sprint, set date, and I don't have capability of setting the sprint dates, and I don't know why. I think that is because, oh, I see what the issue is. It's because I have 2 kinds of accounts. I have the Neudesic account on this particular one, and I created this project with the Neudesic account. So therefore, I would have to bottom line is that I have to give the other account the ability to become a project manager. So let's do that in my team project group membership. Well, in the meantime, the good thing about this, guys, is that, yeah, exactly, that's what I expected. I can't do this because, of course, I'm not the project administrator. Right? So therefore, I have to, let me see how I'm going to solve this. I would have to connect through my Neudesic account. I don't want to, at this point, to interrupt our presentation because I have to log in, or I have to be, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to log out of this one. And in fact, I'm going to show you guys something which are interested in taking a look as well. So if I go here to Team Foundation Server, in this case here, I'm looking at small teams, and I'm logged in as Mendonca. And as you can see here, this is the Hotmail account, right? And that's the issue, right? Since I have created this originally using my Neudesic account, that's the one that's now being, used as the administrator. And I just this at this point. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you here how you can sign up in the Team Foundation service and start creating our own project. So just take note of this particular URL, right? And it's tfs.visualstudio.com. And as I click sign up for free, I'm going to create here, TFS for small teams demo. And now I'm connected as, the one with the Hotmail account. Oh, service only allows one account per user. Okay, that's one thing that we have to take into account. So let me sign out of this. And bear with me for 1 minute, guys. I'm going to now go back to my Ultimate. It's taking a bit longer than I expected. In my settings here, I have small teams. So what I'm going to do is in the servers, I'm going to actually, what I wanted to do is I wanted to remove this. Well, the best thing to do is then is, since I'm signed out as this one, I'm going to try to sign in. Now, here's the tricky part, right? Let's see if this is going to work. So that's not the account. So I'm closing all the queries. Now I'm connected as the other account that I think I have in there. Let's go to the web version and it's going to ask me the same thing because I disconnected right on the web. So my local cookie only remembers the previous one. If you guys are thinking that I'm connecting to the same account, it's not. One is Hotmail personal and the other is Hotmail at work. The reason why I do that is because then I have two accounts to do those demos, and it's unfortunate that it's not allowing me to do this right now. Okay. So I'm here now connected with the other account. So hopefully this account is the one that will allow me to make the changes as we were talking about. So let's go and view the boards, set the dates, and now I can set the dates like we're expected. So let's go ahead and do this and set the dates as, you know, I think let's put this one. It's going to be a 1 month iteration, and January 17th, probably. Save and close. So now I actually, well, right now my burn chart has only, a simple, downwards trend curve. I don't really have anything committed because, as you can see here, I only have one item done, and the others don't even have tasks yet. But, well, what I wanted to show you guys is this, that you see how everything that I normally do in a TFS, in my local install, and etc., I would still have to do it for when managing team projects. I will still have to do it when I do it for the web. And just make sure that you don't get locked out, right, if you guys are doing what I just did in terms of doing demos and so on. Always make sure that you are connecting. If you're trying to do project administration activities, always make sure that you connect with the account that was added in that capability. What I could have done, and I could do it right now, is that I could just go to the team project and add the other account as the owner. So, for instance, in my membership here, here's where I add new members, right? User of the TFS groups. In order for me to manage this, I would have to just back to here, go to settings, and then go to security. No, in this case here, let me see here. So this account, I have contributors, but I want to take a look at the administrators, and it's all right. Yeah, but that's not what I want. I want to manage the users, and I want that user, which is the Mendonca. So the personal one is part of all these groups, right? So he's part of the team foundation, administrators, and part of the team. So I want this guy here to also be part of the, I want him to be part of the project administrators. And now as I save changes, go back to users. Okay, so what am I doing wrong here? Yeah, it was a matter of just refresh. So don't know what it was, but looks like now it's working. So as you can see now, you have that other live ID, which was that was not an administrator. Now it is as well, so we won't have that kind of an issue again. So if I go back to my Visual Studio, and I'm now going to connect as Express for Web. Well, in fact, let me do this. I can do this from either the Ultimate or this one. So therefore, if I go back to VS for Web, I'll have to do the same thing here. I'm going to connect to that collection with the other account. So you see, now I'm connected as personal Hotmail. That is the administration account, right? And with that, I'll be able to do the bills and things like that. So I'm here, and as I go, and I'm going to create a new bill definition. And let's call this daily trigger. I'm going to say that this is a bill daily at 3 a.m. Workspaces, TFS for small teams, and the drops. I have the defaults, right? The hosted build controller. Process template. Now I have to say what items I need to build. I don't know where my solution file is, so maybe see everything we have in here. I thought I had added the solution file, so let me take a look back. Oh, I see what the issue is. Okay. I'll have to do a refresh and see if it goes back again. Okay, not there yet. Looks like I have to leave the wizard so that refresh will happen. Let's just check that main does have. Okay, that's why we have the two pending changes that we didn't do before. Of course, check in pending changes. Do a check-in. A weird error here. Well, let's see if this worked. Right now it shows that I'm disconnected from the web. I'm not sure what this is, so I'm leaving. I'm getting out of Express 2012. Okay, let me try again, guys. Looks like that the weird states on my expression. client, just making sure that I have everything that I don't closed. And looks like I have something going on here, because this is the very build. I got that build yesterday and reinstalled my Expression Web. So in between, let's see, source control, TFS for small teams, and main. Let's see if we have, I still have that pending change. I'm not sure what the issue is here. If I don't have a solution, I'll be able to do a build. Sorry for that, guys. I mean, I just installed this the Q1 update last night, and it seemed to be working fine. And right now we're having this small little snag in here. In between, let's just finalize our deck, and we're pretty much almost done with our presentation. The only really main thing that's pending is show you how builds are done. But while I'm talking to you guys, we'll take a look at how this can be done. So bottom line, the whole conversation so far has been going around issues related to using or communicating in small teams. So first is that you have communication in small teams. You saw the dashboard. You saw how I can actually add people that are outside of my own company by using a Windows Live ID. And if both of us use the Microsoft infrastructure, I can pretty much transparently communicate with the customer. And the customer then can have the option of taking a look as I do my stuff, and as you provide them read access or whatever, or if it's a product owner on the other side, the product owner will be collaborating in terms of providing acceptance criteria and providing more elaborate requirements, and helping to plan the releases and so on. All this is available for free, up to 5 users. Now the build piece of the service is the only one that is pretty much still pending. Microsoft right now says that the builds are available, but they're now working on how the price is going to be. That to some level, build will still continue to be available. Most likely, it's probably going to be something like 5 builds or 5 build definitions, and I'm just guessing here. That is that if you have a build definition for, let's say, main, and another for the dev branch, and then another for a gated check-in, and maybe if you really are trying to make this several different kinds of builds, one build to send things to your lab or things like that, maybe 5 builds might be able to fulfill the needs for everyone. Bottom line is that you will be able to do everything with no entry cost other than your time and your investment in learning the tools, and have everything working with you within your home, and you don't even have to have the latest and greatest OS at all. I mean, this can work with Windows 7. You don't have to have Windows 8 and so on. So pretty much this is the last slide that I had, right? Talk about TFS as a communication hub, and how the service and the free versions, how they pretty much help you streamline how to deal with the uncertainties of getting started on doing software development with a small company and so on. In the deck, And you, by the way, you can send me an email to my Neudesic account, and I can send you the deck. I also have a couple of slides about Neudesic's capabilities as a partner, and what we do, our experience, and if it can help you out, even if you're a small company, we'd like to hear from you and see how you're going about AdaptFS. And my email is in the very second slide here. And it is c.demendonca@neudesic.com. If you send me an email, I'll be able to send you the slides. That said, I went over everything I wanted to talk about today except the builds, which, if you guys allow me while you're asking questions, I'll continue to work on this in just a bit. Ajana?
Thank you, Clementino. I'm now going to request control so that you will soon see 4 quick poll questions in the presentation area. I'll scroll through them for a few minutes after the meeting to give you a chance to answer. Your feedback is valuable to us, so please take a moment to answer these poll questions prior to logging out. And as a reminder, you may request a copy of the slides directly from our presenter today, Clementino de Mendonca, directly in the IM window, or make a request to him via his email address at Neudesic. And I will put up poll question number 3. And I would like to thank Microsoft partner Neudesic and presenter Clementino de Mendonca for their presentation today. Neudesic presents Improving Small Team Productivity with Team Foundation Server. And I will go to the last poll question. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, this concludes today's online meeting. Thank you for joining us. And once you've finished the poll, you may now disconnect. Thanks.